Hello, and welcome to another episode of Concepts to Conversations. I'm Ari Pfefferman, one of the co-hosts of our video blog. We're here today with Tracy Eiler to talk about sales and marketing. So the number one cause of death to marketers is sales not being happy with what they're getting. As a marketer, you may say to yourself, I'm feeding leads to sales, what's the problem? So that's why we brought Tracy in to help answer this question and more. Tracy is a very prominent B2B marketer and a thought leader in the industry. She has had a lot of experience working with both marketing and sales, and as we could say, she's been around the block. So we'd like to welcome Tracy today to our blog.
Thanks, Ari. Awesome. I really appreciate it.
Okay, so our first question to start this off is, how can you figure out exactly what your sales team really needs?
So I think that's a really important question for all marketers, and I think people at every level of the marketing organization need to get inside the head of the sales organization. It's not just the job of the VP of marketing or maybe the head of demand gen, and you might think it is, but you'll really advance your career if you can get inside what the pressures are and what the objectives are of the sales team. And most of us marketers don't really understand it. We think that the sales guys are chasing deals and we know that we're giving them leads, but we don't really know what happens in the meantime. And we need to get inside their heads. And the way that I do that is really listening to the sales organization. And you can start at every level. If you're the VP of marketing, of course, you're going to want to be talking to the VP of sales on a regular basis and his or her lieutenants that are running individual territories, because not every territory runs the same. But as an individual marketer, if you're running individual programs, go make friends with some of the sales folks and just understand what's working for them and what they actually do with the leads that you're getting for them. And some really easy questions include things like asking, leaders of your sales team, what makes your perfect prospect? What's happening at that account that actually makes them somebody that's willing to give us money? And, what stage are they in? What's the person's title? What pain are they having? What objectives are they trying to solve? What technical environment might they have? And the more you can find out about real specifics about that person, their role in the organization, their environment, the problems they're trying to solve, the business reason why they might need your product, you're going to do much better in your messaging and your programs, in your qualifying of leads, of buying lists and qualifying lists, of assessing whether your data is good. You look across a list you might pull in a territory and you'll see a bunch of titles. Are they even the right titles? Are you missing, a particular opportunity there? And so really partnering with sales and having the conversation. And you might even do things like, when you pull your list, go sit down with folks that are in that territory and the sales team and say, can you just eyeball this for me? Do these accounts look like the kind of accounts you want to go after? Do you recognize any of the names? Are there titles here that might be missing? And you'd be surprised how many salespeople keep their own private kind of old Rolodex, and it might be even in Outlook or something, a bunch of the names that really should be in your prospect database that aren't. So those kinds of dialogues are going to show the salespeople that you really care about what you're doing for them and you're trying to be as targeted as possible.
That makes a lot of sense. So I know that this may seem like a silly question, but, if I'm a marketer, where do I go? Where do I start as far as trying to bridge that gap between sales and marketing? Is it a meeting? Is it, what do I do?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and a lot of people think that it's one meeting or one report, and I think sometimes marketers make the mistake of only relying on reports. Like you might get a hold of a Salesforce dashboard that says what the pipeline is, or you might, see your lead reports, or worse, you might, just look at your lead numbers and, maybe somebody above you in marketing said, okay, we need to get X number of leads this quarter. And you might not actually ask why. You just say, oh, okay, so that means I need to get, X number of registrants for my webinar and these many respondents from my email campaigns. When in fact, what you really need to be doing is finding out why, what makes up the pipeline, where do these reports really come from, what's our sales process like. And so I would start, especially if you're a mid-level marketer, start by asking your colleagues and your boss. And you might even go to your head of marketing and say, hey, can we get, use one of our staff meetings to talk about the sales organization in our company, how they're organized, what's the sales cycle like, what are the sales stages like, because you're probably intimately familiar with all the marketing stages, all the way from first touch up to the point where something might be considered sales ready, and every organization calls that opportunity lead something a little different. You're probably intimately familiar with all of that part, But once that handoff goes to the salesperson, what happens to it? You might not even know. And there's probably 5 or 6 steps that the salespeople follow. There's probably different levels of deal value that they give to the deal depending on how it moves along in their stages. And things sometimes fall out of the pipeline. And why is that? And the things that fall out of the pipeline are the things marketing wants to jump on and stick into nurture. Most of the time, the reason something will fall out of a salesperson's pipeline is because the prospect's not ready yet. They're going to be ready someday. But that salesperson is very wired to chase things within the quarter or within maybe 2 quarters. And if somebody's further out than that, and we all know that many, many people are looking at buying decisions where it's like, oh yeah, next year maybe, or 9 months from now, those are the folks that need to be nurtured. And so making sure you have a really tight loop over what falls out of the pipeline and why. And you can find those things out not only from, your own management, finding out in your marketing team, what is the process, but you might even suggest, hey, could we have one of the territory sales managers come to one of our staff meetings and just explain to us what are the stages, what makes a good lead, what doesn't, how are the salespeople incented. One thing that's really important to understand is salespeople are often incented in a rather complex way. We know at the most basic way they're incented by revenue, but especially if like in your SaaS company, for example, there's not only going to be new license revenue, which is usually the thing they're compensated on the most, but there's renewals. There also are other things that you sell, potentially consulting or training or support. And so it's really important to get in your head, what are the components that make up a good deal? And some parts of the sales force might be chasing new revenue only, and other parts might be chasing maintenance renewals. And those guys need marketing campaigns too, because you don't want to just ignore the customer. So there's lots of different things that you need to make sure you understand. It's just going to make you a better marketer. And kind of in a subtext to that is it's going to show the sales team that you truly care and understand that you're on their team. You're not just sitting in your ivory tower, pushing a Marketo button and organizing a party and buying giveaways, which is a lot of times what they think we do.
Thank you, Tracy. So this concludes part 1 of our multi-part series called Sales, the #1 cause of death to marketers. Please tune in next week to hear more information from Tracy. Thanks.